Okay, so deep in Arizona, there's this one stretch of highway that's hiding a really weird secret. It's like a ghost of this huge nationwide plan that just failed. And what's wild is, it looks like a story about measurement, right? But it's actually about something much bigger: money, American identity, and this really powerful, deep seated resistance to change. I mean, think about that for a second. It's a pretty strange fact, isn't it? The US has, what, over 46,000 miles of interstate highway? And out of all of that, just one single stretch doesn't use miles. So you gotta wonder, where is this lonely road? And how in the world did it even happen? Well, here it is, Interstate 19. Ever since it was finished back in 1978, all its signs have been in kilometers. It's kind of this lonely monument to a grand vision that never really came to be, a relic of this big plan to get America in sync with, the rest of the world. To really get what's going on with this highway's secret, we've got to rewind to the 1970s. The US government had this bold and you'd think pretty logical plan. It was finally time for America to join the rest of the planet and go metric.
And let me tell you, the government was not messing around here. This was a serious multi-decade push. I mean, it kicked off with the Metric Conversion Act way back in '75. Fast forward to the early '90s, and federal agencies are being ordered to draw up transition plans. And then the Federal Highway Administration dropped the hammer. They set a hard deadline of 1996. The plan was to have every single highway sign in the country switched over by then.
Now, they knew this was going to be a massive job, so the Federal Highway Administration laid out 3 different ways they could do it. Option 1, do it slowly, just replace signs with metric ones as they got old and needed maintenance anyway. Option 2, just rip the Band-Aid off and switch everything nationwide in about a year. Or Option 3, ease people into it with signs that had both metric and good old English units. The blueprint was ready to go. And this wasn't just some plan stuck in Washington, D.C. either. Oh no, this trickled all the way down into American classrooms. An entire generation of kids, and I was one of them, spent hours learning meters, liters, and grams, all because we were told this was the future. The whole country was gearing up for a metric America. But despite all this careful planning, the whole thing just slammed into a massive wall of resistance. And that resistance, as it so often does, started with one simple thing: money. Yep, this was the number that started getting tossed around. Based on an estimate from just one state, Alabama, the projected nationwide cost to convert every single highway sign was a whopping $420 million. Now, in the mid-90s, that was a huge amount of money, and it gave the opposition a really powerful weapon. So when the feds asked for public comments back in 1993, the response was, well, overwhelming. A full 85% of people were totally against the switch. And the most common argument was pretty straightforward: that money could be way better spent fixing our crumbling roads and bridges, not just repainting some signs. But the opposition wasn't just about the dollars and cents. It got deeply personal, cultural, and for a lot of people, intensely political. This stopped being a debate about measurement and turned into a debate about what it even meant to be American. And if you want to get a sense of where all this pushback was coming from, just look at this map. It shows where opposition letters were sent from during an earlier attempt back in '77. You see hotspots in places you might expect, like California and Florida, but what's really surprising is the intense resistance that came out of states like Wisconsin. So researchers went through thousands of these letters, and a few key themes kept popping up again and again, and they paint this really vivid picture of why so many Americans were just dead set against this change. Okay, so the first theme was this really profound fear of government overreach. For some people, this wasn't just some inconvenient new policy. They saw it as a step towards a one-world government, a conspiracy basically, to strip away American sovereignty by making us conform to international standards. The second big theme was this powerful current of what you'd call American exceptionalism. The argument was pretty simple. Our system, inches, pounds, miles, it's just better. Why should the United States, the greatest nation on earth, have to change to fit in with foreign standards? Shouldn't the rest of the world be trying to be more like us? And this quote, well, it pretty bluntly captures the mood. Someone who lived through it remembered hearing this kind of thing all the time. Some people recalled how President Reagan's administration later painted the switch as this un-American waste of money, really tapping into that deep-seated belief that adopting a foreign system was somehow a betrayal of our national identity. And then, of course, there were the more practical arguments. Some people actually argue that the math of the imperial system was better for everyday life. They'd claim that the number 12, 12 inches in a foot, was way more practical because you can divide it by 2, 3, 4, and 6. The metric system's base 10, that's only divisible by 2 and 5. So in the end, this perfect storm of cost concerns, cultural anxiety, and just a massive public outcry, well, it worked. The government caved. In 1994, the Federal Highway Administration postponed the conversion deadline indefinitely, which basically killed the whole nationwide plan right then and there. And that big retreat left the United States in this very, very strange place, with the bizarre hybrid system of measurement that we still use to this day. I mean, really think about it. We live in this world of total measurement contradictions. We buy our soda in 2-liter bottles, but measure our milk in gallons. We talk about our car engines in liters, but measure their speed in miles per hour. Our science, our military, our medical fields, they're pretty much all metric. But our day-to-day lives? Stubbornly imperial. And this failure to just pick a lane and stick with it has had some very real and honestly terrifying consequences. The famous Gimli glider incident is a perfect example. An Air Canada 767 literally ran out of fuel at 41,000 feet, all because of a simple conversion error between pounds and kilograms. It was an absolute miracle nobody got hurt. And then there's this one. In 1999, NASA lost a $300 million Mars orbiter. The reason? One engineering team used metric units for their calculations, while another team used English units. The spacecraft completely missed its orbit and was destroyed. A painfully expensive rounding error that just screams about the huge risks of not having a single clear standard. So, when you look back at that lonely stretch of metric highway down in Arizona, you kind of have to ask, was America's rejection of the metric system just a simple failure of government policy? Or is it a deeper story about a culture so convinced of its own exceptionalism that it was willing to risk all this confusion and these costly mistakes rather than adopt a global standard? It's a question that tells us a whole lot about that powerful intersection of practicality, politics, and national identity.